Yeah.
Okay. All right. It is 7:03. Thank you, everyone. And we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And do we have any, let's see, we do have one presentation this evening.
Come on down, Miss Carrie Backert?
Backert.
Yes,
Thank you
from
so
the
much.
American Heart Association.
Oh, just the clicker?
Yes.
I'm going to sit because with the clicker and this, is that okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
Okay, I
Yeah.
apologize. So,
We need-
I'm Carrie Backert. I'm a senior youth school engagement director for the American Heart Association, and it's my pleasure just to be here to celebrate with you all. I know that sometimes school board meetings you get some negative news, and so I'm here to bring some great news that a couple of your schools are doing to help us at the American Heart Association. So I just wanted to share and give some shout outs to some folks. But myself and two other folks work with over 300 schools in the St. Louis metro area. So I'm here just to celebrate with you all. So here we go. And I don't.
This is, it's over here.
There we go.
There
we go.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So McGrath and Mark Twain Elementary Schools are two of the 16,000 schools across the country that partner with the American Heart Association with Kids Heart Challenge. And so Kids Heart Challenge is a program where students learn healthy habits and maintaining a heart-healthy diet, learning appropriate exercise, learning to avoid vaping, smoking products, and then also learning life-saving skills such as hands-only CPR and the signs of a stroke. And so, but the most important piece of it too is that kids are learning about how to take care of themselves, but then also how to help others in their community as well. So we, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's a great partnership that we work with schools across the country to teach them to be lifesavers, but also to have them help other people as well. So you guys can learn from me when you do your presentation. If you look at the stats up there, the American Heart Association, we celebrated our 100th year last year, and so we've had some amazing breakthroughs during our 100 years. We have funded many, many research studies, and we promoted heart health education within schools and community areas. And then we've also advocated for longer, healthier lives across the country. But looking at the stats above, we still have work to do, and we're still busy working in communities and with our research as well. Okay, so right here in St. Louis, I'd just like to share the impact of what we're doing here in St. Louis. So over the past few years, we have funded over $10 million worth of research studies at St. Louis University and Washington University. So the money is staying right here with our studies. And then we've also been laser focused with teaching hands-only CPR and making sure AEDs are in schools and in community centers. So that has been a really, really big focus for us. And then also looking at nutrition security, especially in our low-income areas, and then blood pressure screening for folks in the St. Louis area. Okay, there we go. Okay. So the most important reason why I'm here tonight is just to celebrate the Brentwood School District and the partnership we have with you. We have over a 10-year history of partnering with Brentwood schools, with McGrath and Mark Twain Elementaries, and we're committed to helping kids to be prepared physically and mentally to achieve in the world. And so this past year, we reached over 400 families within those two elementary schools. And within that, 20 of the families completed FIN's mission, which is a series of about 7 steps where they learn hands-only CPR and the signs of the stroke. So we feel like that's great that families, it was a homeschool connection for families to do. And I publicly want to recognize Brian Wildgruby and Ryan Lim at the two elementary schools. They are amazing partners and do an amazing job with implementing this program in their schools. And if you can see at a picture up there, Ryan likes to get a little crazy. And so this year, any student that collected a donation for the American Heart Association, they got a cup of slime. So we made a big mess, but we did it, we cleaned it up after we were done. But it was a really fun celebration at the school, and collectively the two schools raised over $15,000 for the American Heart Association. And then in return, we reinvested about $1,500 back in the schools for PE equipment. So that's worth a round of applause. Okay. So more now than ever in education, right? Schools are being faced with roadblocks. We all know that, right, for learning. And our goal at the AHA is to help you all with resources and funding to improve the stats above. And if you look up there, some of them are almost heartbreaking to even read. And one of the ones that I'd like to highlight, last year, I don't know, are any of you familiar with the Hearts bill that passed at the national level? Heard of that? Okay, so it was a bipartisan bill that we advocated for, that was signed actually by President Biden. And I have to read it because I'm going to say the wrong words. So it stood for Cardiomyopathy, Health Education, Awareness, Research, and Training in Schools, otherwise known as the Hearts Act. So basically what it's saying is we want all schools to have a cardiac emergency response plan and pushed it. So they made legislation that all schools have AEDs, that people are properly trained with CPR, that there's a plan, right, within the schools. Well, then that's trickled down to the states. I'm happy to report that Missouri passed it this year, just passed this session. So you'll be seeing some information from us. They have actually funded some legislation to get more AEDs within the school buildings, and there'll be some more reach out to just help schools to come up with a quality cardiac emergency response plan. So we're anxiously waiting Governor Kehoe to sign that and make sure that that happens. Okay. So how can you guys continue to help us? Well, number one is please celebrate McGrath and Mark Twain Elementary Schools, Ryan and Brian, and just please tell them what a great job, because they are doing something extra beyond just the teaching in the classroom. So please do that, and then continue to support state and federal legislation, right? So things that promote healthy eating, active classrooms in schools, kids being safe with the CERT plans, those are all things that you all can do as a school district and as a school board, is just making sure that that happens. And then the other thing is to learn hands-only CPR and the signs of a stroke. So I've got a little quiz for you guys tonight. We use the acronym FAST at the American Heart Association for the signs of a stroke. Anyone have an idea what the F stands for? You got it. Are you a nurse? Okay, A. Think about a stroke. Arm. Your arm is gonna.
Thank you for waving
There
your
you
arm.
go.
It was helpful. It helped.
S. Speech. Slurred speech. And then T, time to call 911. Okay, so we're teaching the kids that in their PE class. I'm dating myself because some of you are a little bit younger than me, but I learned stop, drop, and roll in elementary school, right? And that's muscle memory. If I ever caught on fire, I knew stop, drop, and roll, right? So within Kids Heart Challenge and the AHA, we want this to become muscle memory for stroke, signs of a stroke, and hands-only CPR. So, right, if someone's unresponsive, you get an adult if they're little, but if not, you call 911, and you start pushing hard and fast the center of the chest to the tune of staying alive, right? So this is super important. Every year, we just, women go for their annual physicals, men go for their annual physicals. This is the annual reminder to kids. Let's talk about the signs of a stroke. Let's talk about hands-only CPR. And we have actually had kids that have recognized the signs of a stroke in older adults when they're living in multi-generational homes. And we had a success story that a kindergartner and his mom actually performed the hands-only CPR after watching our video 2 weeks prior. So we are definitely making a difference in that area. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up with this video just to show the importance. We're lucky in the state of Missouri that there is a requirement for hands-only CPR for high school graduation, but we know as early as kindergarten we can start teaching them this life-saving skill. So hopefully it works.
By having all students K through 12 are trained in this matter, you are creating a future generation of lifesavers.
There are 356,000 sudden cardiac arrests in the country every single year, and 23,000 of those happen in under 19-year-olds, which is crazy. We need to have people that are trained in CPR and emergency care so that they're able to step up and help our loved ones when they do go down. AED should be at every field, every school, every room, and no more than a couple minutes away from absolutely everyone.
There are people who survive 15 minutes of sudden cardiac arrest, but a lot of times there's just a body left. It's super important to get those AEDs so you can have good neurologic outcomes and have more outcomes like mine, where a day later the person woke up in their own bed. They wouldn't even known anything happened.
Kids come to school every morning, and we want to make sure they go home in the afternoon. Our job is to protect them, and we need the resources to do that.
To our local and state officials, this is absolutely necessary. Every teacher needs to be trained in CPR. Every school needs to have access to an AED. This is preventable. We need to stand by our students. We need to stand by our athletes. We need you to act. Together.
Together, we can save lives from cardiac arrest.
So, on behalf of the American Heart Association, I just want to thank you for your support, and I look forward to partnering with your schools again next year. If you have any questions as far as the legislation, feel free to reach out to me. I'm a conduit, Project Adam, I know we're working with them as well, and you know how Missouri works with state legislation. It moves very slowly, so we're trying to figure out the details. So, thank you so much for having me tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And no problem. Good luck.
Oh, I thought I was waiting for Liz.
Ready for, I can give you an intro, yes.
I was supposed to do it.
Spotlight on Brentwood, it's our favorite part of all of our board meetings.
Very excited because this time of year I feel like every day is a spotlight on Brentwood. I don't know if you've noticed the weekend update pictures have gotten longer and
It's like a
longer.
full page of
Yes.
pictures. Mhm.
Well, it's hard to choose which ones, so I decided to just bombard you with all of them. But Tony is going to highlight the amazing things that are happening as we wrap up the school year.
All right, and I think this is our last one of the
Yes.
24-25 school year.
Yes,
So,
we will take a break.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be
So-
great things happening, but we will be taking it. We only have one board
Fair.
meeting in the summer.
But just to say thanks for giving me a couple minutes tonight to share some of the great things that's happening in our schools. Just a reminder that when we do it, we try to categorize them in our 4 strategic plan buckets: student success, school culture, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and then unified community engagement. A lot of these could be placed in multiple buckets, so we do our best to kind of, confine them into one, but a lot of them bridge the gap. So let's start with student success, and we will go to our Brentwood High School Scholar Bowl team, coached by high school science teacher Jessica Musterman. And just a couple weeks ago, the team finished 3rd in the Class 2 state championships. One place better than they did last year. So last year finished 4th, won the district championship for the 2nd year in a row this year, won their opening match in the round robin tournament, lost some close matches to some really good teams, and then finished with a win in the 3rd place match. So if you're not familiar with Scholar Bowl, it challenges students across subjects like math, science, social studies, or history, fine arts, literature, and basically they use a lockout buzzer system. So a moderator reads a question, the team has to ring in first. They get to answer. If they don't answer it correctly, it goes to the other team. So it's not just ringing in the fastest, but being able to have a large knowledge base or a broad knowledge base, being able to collaborate with your team quickly to come up with the answer. So all of these students kind of had like their specialty of what they're really strong in to make a good cohesive team. And just a great example of one of our activities doing something very well and continued growth and success. 4th last year, 3rd this year. So there's lots of returners in there, so lots of underclassmen on that team. So we'll see how they do next year. That looks good. So, and then for our second, this is a photograph from the Brentwood Middle School Toy Expo, and this was a project in 8th grade science class and Emily Williamson. So 8th graders applied their knowledge of electricity, magnetism, and electromagnetism to design and build functional toys from scratch. Students engaged in the full engineering design cycle from brainstorming and prototyping to testing and then presenting their creations. So I was there to capture it. Dr. Zielinski was there. Dr. Zagora was there. Just cool to interact with the kids, talk about the process, talk about the trial and error, and then what does it do and how does it work.
That was supposed to be a crane, and so the fact that it didn't work and then they made it something completely different was very cool. I was like, oh, how'd you come up with this? And like, the other thing didn't work. It was very cool to talk to them about the process that they had to go through to get to where they were.
So just a great example of blending science, creativity, problem solving, and reinforcing the concepts related to non-contact forces and technical skills and imaginative thinking. So very cool activity at the middle school. And then our Brentwood High School girls soccer team, coached by, she stole my thunder, Ryan Lim and Brian Wildgroovy. So the American Heart Association kind of stole my thunder. We'll recognize them again, this time for coaching our girls soccer team. The Brentwood girls soccer team finished the regular season with an impressive 11-3 record. The Eagles captured the South Central Conference Championship with a perfect 10-0 conference record. Probably more importantly, they defeated Maplewood Richmond Heights 2 times this year. That's the first time that's happened in over a decade. So it's always nice to beat your crosstown rival. The Eagles are anchored by junior Kenzie Curd, who leads the entire St. Louis metro area in scoring with 58 goals and 11 assists, so 127 points, well above the second place person just by checking today. The team plays tonight probably just kicked off a few minutes ago, in the Class 1 District 2 quarterfinals. Against Principia. So Brentwood's the number 4 seed, Principia is the number 5 seed, so we'll see how they do tonight. A great example of our student athletes succeeding, but not just our girls soccer team, just to talk about all of our student athletes in the spring. Our baseball team finished the regular season with a 16-6 record and earned the number 2 seed in the Class 2 District 4 tournament. Unfortunately, their season ended just a little bit ago
I was hoping
today.
for a text update. I didn't get one.
I haven't heard from my son yet, so you know.
Well, I checked on social media. But, unfortunately, the number 1 seed in the district tournament was also the number 1 team in the state in Class 2 the entire season. Valley Catholic, they're, I think, 27-2. So it's kind of tough when you're seeded in your district with the number 1 team in the state, but still a great season. So give them a shout out. And then also we have a handful of track and field athletes that will compete in the Class 2 track and field championships this Friday and Saturday in Jeff City. So another great example of outstanding high school athletics and activities. So on to school culture. And we like this one because one of our points in this bucket is recognizing and celebrating students or teachers and staff. So we have our end of the year celebration from a couple of weeks ago. The district honored 5 retirees this year. Dr. Steve Ayotte, Kristen Clemens, Jeff Heinrich, Kyle Henderson, and Tim Rempel, who together combined for 79 years of service to Brentwood students, staff, and families. We also recognized years of service employees for 10, 15, 20, and 25 years. And then also re-recognized our Teacher of the Year, Rachel Beard Curran, and Support Staff Person of the Year, Van Jackson. And also all of the individuals who received nominations for those awards, just as an extra way to show them that they were in the mix and people thought highly enough of them to nominate them for that award. And these are some of our Teacher of the Year nominees. So some familiar faces in there. All right, next one. I thought tonight I was going to have a bunch of pictures of graduation. Like that was going to be my student success. Was my lead off was going to be a bunch of cool graduation pictures. But unfortunately, Mother Nature didn't play along. But fortunately, on Friday morning, we were able to do the Brentwood High School grad walk. So this is the third year for this tradition. Kind of new, but still a great thing. High school seniors dressed up in their caps and gowns, starting in the middle and high school library, walking down the middle school hallways, lined with students and teachers cheering them on, high fives, lots of smiles, lots of like hoots and hollers and things like that. Down the middle school hallways, down into the commons in front of the underclassmen at the high school, then out the door and down to McGrath to walk through and see the McGrath Elementary School students. A sharp left-hand turn into the cafeteria so that the kindergartners and first graders wouldn't miss it because they were eating. So they didn't want them to miss it. And then down the ECC hallway, and then out and onto a bus over to Mark Twain. This is the Mark Twain hallway. And they were having their field day at the exact same time, and they were just about ready to take a break for lunch and to cool down just a little bit. So perfect timing. All the kids lined up in the hallways, coming down that main hallway, and then out the door, out into the field. So just a great example of kind of a whole school community event, a school culture thing that's high school specific, but involves everyone. Just a really neat, cool thing.
Seeing the elementary teachers hug the seniors and like seeing
Lots of
like
hugs and high
the
fives.
coolest.
Pretty darling.
It's kind of a favorite
Yeah.
thing. I got teary-eyed when they were walking out of the library. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just so proud. It's very cool.
I have a lot more photos that hopefully I'll be able to share in the coming days, maybe tomorrow, just in a preview up to graduation. So I just have to, I take a lot of photos because the more you take, that hopefully you'll have like a handful of good ones in there, but then you have to go through all of them. But then our final one, this is a great example of a high school culture example, but not to forget any of our other schools. So just kind of a school culture mashup here, starting from the top left, the BECC PAT end of year bash featured music, popsicles, bubbles, games, a bounce house, a visit from the Brentwood Fire and EMS. So a great activity, a great way for them to kind of wind down their year and celebrate all the things that have happened, all the things that happened at BECC this year. To the top right, Mark Twain fifth graders visited the middle school where they participated in team building activities, explored the campus, met new faces, and began building connections for a smooth and exciting transition in the fall. These were Mark Twain kids, but McGrath kids also did this. So just a way to get kids up here, to get them excited about that transition from 5 to 6. In the bottom right, Brentwood Middle School 8th graders had an opportunity to hear from current juniors about their high school experiences, what they've learned, what surprised them, what they wish they had known before making the transition to high school. So the middle school leadership action team developed this idea, and just another example of trying to make those 612 connections and bring that whole kind of 612 umbrella together. And then the bottom left, last Friday, McGrath students, staff, and families were treated to the Drama Club's production of McGrath School Musical 2, so the second year, featuring scenes from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Grease, and that one is The Greatest Showman. So as great as that event was, I really want to thank everyone in that building, because 15 minutes after the show wrapped up is when the severe weather hit, and everyone came back into the gym to shelter in place. Everyone was well behaved, everyone was quiet, everyone followed all the procedures that we needed them to. And it was just a really good example of being able to just turn on a dime and go into safety mode and being able to take care of everybody. And then when everything passed, to send everybody on their way home safely. So, all right. And then our last bucket, unified community engagement, and this feels like months and months ago. But our annual senior citizens brunch, it wasn't that long ago, but it was right after our April board meeting, so we didn't get to highlight, but we want to highlight it this month. So we hosted our annual senior citizens brunch last month, bringing together longtime community members for a morning of connection, entertainment, and district updates. So guests enjoyed a breakfast buffet and student performances from the McGrath kindergarten singers, the middle school choir, and the high school jazz band. So Dr. Zielinski and Lindsay Spencer shared updates on district progress and priorities, highlighting the importance of community partnerships. And then just a shout out and thank you to our student volunteers, both from the middle and high school, who were there to greet guests, were there to help serve guests, were there to clean up after everyone was gone. And just another great example of everybody coming together for a really great community event. So, any questions for this month? Thank you all for giving me the time. Appreciate it.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
We may have to do a little one at the retreat so we can see the graduation.
I think we do, yes.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Tony. Katie, if we can do roll call, please.
Mark Cicero. Katie Clark.
Here.
Brian Dodson.
Here.
Ryan Flynn. Keith Ravenberg.
Here.
Katie Spall.
Here.
Lindsay Spencer.
Here. Thank you. If I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
A second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's great. Moves us into superintendent's report.
I am beyond excited, and the only person in this room that is more excited than me is Amy Hartman to be presenting a final update on the construction projects at McGrath and Mark Twain. And I thank Matt for being here with Navigate to lead us through the work. As I was just over there today looking at that beautiful sod while kids were outside playing on the hardtop. So.
And don't need to water too much.
Yeah. No, not anymore.
Yeah, so happy to be here. I know there's a couple new faces for those I haven't met. Matt with Navigate Building Solutions. We've been owner's representative for the district now for almost 5 years. I was like looking back at our initial task order. It was just about 5 years ago, I think, is when we got on board to help with this high school, middle school project. But this construction update is for the elementary school projects that have been completed over the last couple of years, 3 or 4 years now. But wrapping up with the final phase for McGrath. So, get started. So we'll talk through just kind of the project schedules and how they've all completed. A little bit of overview of the project budget, how that completed. Our personal performance record for Navigate. Share you some information there, and then completion photos, and we'll just wrap up with any questions at the end. So overall schedule update for the elementary schools. We initially completed the new McGrath building, so we call that phase 1 McGrath, and actually that kind of was even split into 2 pieces, an early site work package to get us rolling into the fall, and then into the new building that sat right next to the old McGrath, and that completed back in December of 2022. Then we rolled right into the Mark Twain renovations and additions, which completed last summer, 2024. And this wraps up our phase 2 of McGrath, which started back in the summer of 24. And we're looking to be complete now with, I think, all the punch items and everything later this month. So just some time for end of the school year. Some items to complete that are remaining with both projects. You know, obviously Mark Twain we're moved into, but there are like 2 or 3 remaining punch list items. I believe the electrician is scheduled to be out there potentially later this week. It sounds like they had some availability to wrap up a couple punch list items. There was also lockers, and I think those were more of an oversight. There was some custodial lockers, I believe, in the kitchen that was just overlooked, so they ordered those. It was a punch list item that was caught. So they're getting those in. I think the week of the 27th is planning on having that installed. And then really just wrapping up a final application with the general contractor, ICS. We have an 11-month warranty walk scheduled for June. So we'll go through any warranty type items that Andy and his team have identified, or if we see anything on that walk, we'll identify that for ICS to address as well. McGrath Elementary, phase 2 site work. So wrapped up the sod installation. Plantings, I think there might be a couple little trees or bushes that are still remaining, but they're looking to try to get that wrapped up this week. The monument sign is complete other than the letters on the sign, so it looked like they had those on order. Looking at the week of the June 2nd to get that wrapped up. And then I had the drainage flume. So as you enter off of St. Clair, and that drive kind of makes a winding road, there's a retaining wall, and you'll notice even on a dry day there's water that kind of runs across the drive. We're really not sure where that's coming from, but we're concerned that it is going to undermine that retaining wall a little bit. So this is a solution to connect basically the curb to the retaining wall with a concrete flume or swale, just to divert that water down to a drain. So really not sure where we're getting that water. Like I was telling Andy before this, I was up there walking around to see if I could pinpoint it, but it's something that's coming up from the ground, I think, where the footing is. So. But other than that, we should be wrapping things up, and I think there's a change order on the agenda tonight for Bombshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions as well. That's outside of this work. It was previous work that was completed. So we'd be looking at final application. My guess would probably be the June time frame to wrap up finances with that general contractor and be done with that work. This is a look at the budget overview. So these are actual costs for each of the phases. So each column, we got McGrath early site work package. That's that 1.2 million construction. The new McGrath construction was 15.3. The Mark Twain's 13.3, and then the McGrath phase 2 was the 1.5. When you look at all those different categories, obviously construction across the top, and then all our soft costs came in below that, and we ended up with a total of all scopes just above that $36 million mark, 36,166,097. Any questions or comments specific to the budget or the construction costs? And then my next slide kind of compares it to where our budget ended up.
Great. The next slide.
The next slide's the one that's most important, Matt, that I like the most.
So the top dollar, that's the 36 million. Our owner budget going into this, going into the Mark Twain project, we were at 36.2, so that leaves us a little bit of room there at the end, $45,000 under budget. So came in right under the wire, but I think this will then, and that's all in, including the potential cost for that concrete flume. We have some money set aside, that is already baked into that cost as well. Any questions there?
Yeah, that's very good news with all of the changes and
Yeah.
renovations.
Yeah, and this slide, what we wanted to represent is, obviously we've been working hand in hand with the district for, close to 5 years. We kind of look at ourselves as integrating ourselves with your staff. We're just there to be a consultant. Going along with that, we understand there is a fee, and we have a livelihood too to make money. But what we strive to do is to for the fee that we have earned through this partnership, is try to show that we're going to help provide savings ultimately to the district. And our goal, and we strive to exceed what our fee is by making that amount of savings. And this kind of just shows through competitively bid projects. So everything was put out hard bid. We negotiated design fees. We were present for onboarding all the designers. During the design phase, we also did periodic estimates for each design. Contractor scope clarifications, we looked at all the designs before they went out to bid just to see if we had scope aligned and there wasn't anything missing. We call that a constructability review. And then once a contractor's on board, we know there's going to be change orders. We will review cursory review of all change orders that do come in, and at the end of the day, through our feedback and kicking change orders back to the contractor, ultimately there's some savings there. So just wanted to represent some of those savings, all in for all projects. Our fees were right about $1 million. What I've come up with over the course of those 4 years through all these projects is about a $1.6 million in savings at any one of those categories we've attributed to. So just to kind of help, kind of sell the services that we provide, and also being a partner with the district, just give you guys that feedback. So, any questions with that? All right. On to the good stuff. So see some completion photos. McGrath, this was the new build. So obviously good looking building, new playgrounds. I didn't have a picture on here of the final playground at the ECC, because every time I think we went out there was kids enjoying it.
Which is a wonderful thing. That was probably one of the happiest days that we've had this year, was opening that playground.
Yeah, just in time for the warm weather. So some more of the inside the McGrath, the library on the left, and the gymnasium.
We put that storm shelter to
Yeah,
use
storm.
on Friday, and it was,
All of the storm shelters to use.
yes,
That was
and
great.
it was a wonderful investment by the community.
Did they close the window in the library?
Yeah,
Hammer
it would have been
Yeah,
something
yes.
that was.
They did.
Yeah, that one, is McGrath didn't have.
Yeah, this is, McGrath does it because there's no windows,
There's no windows.
which is
I was
wonderful,
in
actually.
that
Yes, Katie was
insular
with us.
bomb-proof shelter, and we heard 2 claps of thunder and walked outside. Just what happened?
Yeah.
It was nuts.
Some other photos of the site work. So that pavilion area on the right, some of the U10 soccer field on the left. Then I think since these photos, they have pretty much everything now sodded at upper field. So it's looking nice. Like I said, I think we've already mowed it, what, once or twice?
I saw all the keep off the grass signs. How long are they gonna be out?
For as long as possible.
I gotta believe there's kids who wanna run across there.
I believe that too.
I wouldn't put it past them that we've had.
I think they
one or
already
two,
have.
yeah.
I'm not sure how good those signs are gonna work on, especially on the weekends.
So moving over to Mark Twain, obviously, another stunning building in addition, especially that breezeway area in between the old, the two additions that were there, the picture on the right, just a really cool area right there. And then, so that's the shutter window on the library on the left. So glad that was working. And then the gymnasium renovation on the right and Mark Twain. And lastly, just wanted to, take an opportunity to, say thank you to the district. Like I said, 5 years, I've actually started with Navigate at the same, when I started, this was my first project working on the high school, middle school. It's been a real pleasure working with your team, Dr. Zelinsky and Dr. Lane before you, and Lindsay and the board, and Andy, can't forget Matt and Ward. But just, couldn't ask for better people to work with, and I really appreciate the opportunity, and never know what lies ahead, so.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Matt, both to you and to Navigate. I mean, it was wonderful having you guys join our team partway through this project, and your updates have always been great, lots of pictures. We love to see the pictures of progress, and we've really appreciated your assistance through this for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
Man,
I know, it's long back.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. If you guys need a recommendation for any other proposals, I think we'd be there for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's a very professional job you guys did.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so any other questions or anything I can address?
Man, thank you so much,
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, wonderful.
Thank you. I can stick around if you had that change.
Oh, I'll send it to you. All right, preliminary budget, Matt Norrid.
Thank you all for the opportunity to talk about the budget again. So just,
We have a lot of time about budgets later, Matt.
So fun pictures too.
He does, did you read the?
With the report was
Yes.
outstanding. Very
Yes, excellent.
detailed and
So
easy to follow.
we've had multiple meetings coming up to this moment where we present our budget. So tonight, you're not gonna have a PowerPoint where I'm gonna talk about the process. You guys have been part of the process. Our buildings have been part of the process. We started this process in the fall where we identified the facilities rotation programs that we're going to be hopefully working toward. Then in January, we begin the process of working with our buildings, identifying their budget allocation, and then working with them on how we can place those dollars within their own budgets. We have a very active process with our building leadership where we ask them, this is the amount that we can allocate per pupil, but how can you place this in the best place so that if we have to perform budget reductions, we're making sure that we're honoring the needs of your programming. So with that being said, the items that we have been discussing through this program are, we're going to talk about the revenues that you set in your budget. So this is everything that I'm going to be saying right now is already in our executive summary. I'm just going to be repeating that for anybody that hasn't had that opportunity. We are increasing our revenue for our local taxes in accordance with the Consumer Price Index of 2.9%. But we're also showing a Consumer Price Index for food service. So this number is different, it's 3.8%, because food and fuel have different inflation factors than just the standard inflation rate. So our revenue will move up by 2.9. Food service costs will move roughly at 3.8. They'll be less than that because we're also looking at our historical data to make sure that we're not over budgeting in this line item. The assessed valuation, we are using our assessed valuation, which was based on our preliminary data that was released in March. So That's $544 million of assessed valuation. We will get updated numbers in July, and then we'll get updated numbers again in September, and then we'll get updated numbers again in December. So if you're wondering if we're trying to hit a moving target, we're doing our best. So we're also using the updated collection rate, so we increased our collection rate from 95% to 96%. Our operations, operating levy, we anticipate to produce about $15.6 million in the coming year. We're also looking at continuing the process of funding operations and moving dollars out of capital projects into operations as part of our long-term plans. Our debt service program, we're maintaining the 89 cents, which should generate $4.7 million. As we continue the process of earning reserves in our general obligation bond, we'll work with our bond counsel to see how we can best use those through either defeasance, refunding, or whatever other options could be with that. The state adequacy target, as you all probably had in our last meeting, state adequacy target was approved by the state of Missouri in the budget for $7,145 per kiddo. We're still using the number of 6,760, which is this year's figure. The rationale is that there's still the ability for the state governor to do line item vetoes or reductions by line item as part of that process of the budget office. We won't know that number until June 30th, so that's the final date that the Missouri State Governor can perform line item veto and approve the budget of the state. We are showing the amount that DESE has recommended for Prop C funding. That amount has reduced from $1,514 per WADA to $1,495. Again, half of this we give back to our community through the tax rollback. We're assuming a reduction within our title program. We're not cutting all of our title programs or our title funding, but we are being relatively conservative with applying the reductions that we've been seeing. As our demographics continue to change, our federal aid will continue to dwindle accordingly. Beginning fund balances. So we are updating our beginning fund balance will be reflected on the final figure that we're assuming to end as of June 30th of this year. So the number that you'll see in here will be slightly different than the number that was presented as part of our final budget revision. We'll also bring back a budget revision as part of our next budget meeting to set budget to actual as we do in years past to meet state compliance. On our expenditures, we're continuing to meet our obligations to our current agreements for salaries, both for certified staff and support staff, and continuing to support benefits. Right now, the budget is designed with a 13.9% increase in medical coverage. When we present the budget in June, this number will change. I received the most recent data a day before I produced this document. So I was probably too deep into this to make the revision at that point in time. But you will get that revised data, and you'll have updated numbers with how we have had placement with our current hiring. All of that will be reflected as much as possible whenever we produce the June 10th document. So we will report what those changes are as part of that document we present to the school board. Again, we're meeting our obligations through our long-term facilities plans, our continued refresh cycle with technology, and then we're also anticipating continued funding from transfers from the operating fund, general fund, into the teachers fund. Whereas we're currently estimating that to be a contribution of about $9.5 million in the following year. Are there any questions associated with the budget that we have presented? And we've had several conversations through email. We've had some meetings with individuals that had questions. I know that this was the current document that you all have. It's going to look very different than what you've seen in the past.
It has pictures, Keith.
It has
I like
pictures.
it a lot, yeah.
There might be pictures of you all in there.
I didn't love that. I didn't love it.
We have some of the pictures that Matt and I just presented right here as part of our facilities improvements. So we're going to continue this process of hopefully continuing to add content to this, potentially selected statistics, potentially additional pie charts to
sure it was a ton of time to put this together, and we are reading it, so
Good.
appreciate it.
It's great to hear. This is not an action item, this is an information item.
Mhm.
So this is available for you all. If you got questions over the next, I guess, week and a half, please let me know. We're going to be working on that final document for the final approval.
Yeah, I just want to highlight, glad to see that shown as a surplus for the year. That's very encouraging.
We're trying to continue to sharpen that information, get as close as possible to the final fund balance. We want to be as accurate as possible. Balancing conservatism and accuracy is sometimes a little bit hard for an accountant. They beat that into us at also.
I appreciate that. Any other questions for me? He's not going anywhere because he's going to
Nope.
present P cards, purchasing cards for 24-25.
This one is an action item. Each year we propose, according to district policy, a list of our P card holders. According to our district policy, P cards have to be held by an individual. So both the largest number you're going to see in here is tied to my name. I'm not going to go buy a house with this. But the dollar amount that's in, the largest number that's associated with mine is associated to the district purchasing is tied back to my account. So all of our Amazon purchasing, all of our utility sale, our purchases costs, all of those revolving costs that are about $80,000 a month, those tie back to my district credit card. We also have compounding internal controls that are in place to safeguard the use of that. All other items are outlined based upon historical need of those P cards. You see asterisks in the note column. Those are individuals who are either going to be coming onto our organization or joining our organization or exiting our organization accordingly.
If I could have a motion to approve the P cards.
Make a motion to approve the list of P cards for fiscal year 2025-2026.
I second. Discussion?
As part of the process to evaluate that each of these individuals continue to have the need every year for our P card.
So currently we keep their limits relatively short and we issue short-term increases of their credit limits that are set to time out based upon need. So the individuals who have these credit lines, typically they need more on a regular basis. But we continue to extend a credit line as necessary and then pull it back down to the limited amount. So we have about 2 credit lines that are extended right now. We're due to pull those back basically tomorrow.
What did you say about the asterisks? I missed that.
Sure. So we try to identify to you all, like we don't want to ask you to approve a credit line for an individual that's retiring. So their credit line would be still live for another month because they need to continue what's necessary to perform their duties. So as of tonight, we're asking you to renew those people's credit lines up until June 30th.
Oh, okay.
But then we have individuals that are joining our organization as of July 1. So we're asking for their credit lines to become effective as of July 1. So we can request those credit lines, have those pieces of plastic in hand, safeguarded in our safe until they're able to sign custody over to them. We have a process of where they sign agreements of what they can and cannot use these lines for, and they're also personally responsible for them. And they sign those affidavits and agreements, and we hold those in record.
All right, any other questions for Matt? All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, next up is the district facilities rental rates. These come each year. I will be honest that we had discussed briefly before I started here. I remember this as being one of the board meetings I was at, and we talked about being able to look at the whole rental facilities and creating like layered approaches. We ran out of time this year. I'm not going to lie to you. I did do some cursory research of are we in the ballpark with what we are charging. So I was able to do that. I looked at anywhere I could find online. So Lindbergh, Ladue, Webster Groves, Clayton's I couldn't find, Maple Waters, Heights I couldn't find. So I was trying to be comparable. We are in the ballpark. I do still want to, my hope is moving forward is to have most of those districts do where they have Tier 1, which is all district facilities, so it's free for anything that is like sponsored by the district, obviously. A Tier 2 that is something that serves district students. So like even a CYC sports team, which we've addressed by having reciprocal agreements. This year we've created with like Mary Magdalene. So Mark Twain was able to use their one gym for their trivia night for free. They're able to use our spaces for some of their practices. So we've tried to address it. And then a Tier 3, which is like a for-profit or something outside of Brentwood. Like I said, I will completely own it. Ran out of time on that. But the one thing I did want to bring, our rates are in the ballpark of neighboring rates. Some are higher, some are lower, some are even. The one thing we did actually add, though, is the pavilion that is done at McGrath that actually was brought up by someone who was like, can we rent that? And I was like, oh, we could add that to the list. It does have electric, and it, to be able, people can use it whenever they want, but if you want to guarantee that it's rented for your thing, we did the rate of $50 an event, which is comparable to what the city of Brentwood charges for any of the pavilions like down in the industrial court. Also, the other challenge, though, as I'm sure, is that if they want access to the building, though, there would have to be a payment for custodial support to be able to use restrooms. And so we'll write a procedure to go with that one. But I do feel like that with that pavilion, it's very nice. And I could see people wanting to use that for birthday parties and things like that. And this way they could reserve it. So that was the one addition. Everything else, like I said, fell in with the comparables. The reciprocal agreement we have been following. Like I said, we added the one with Mary Magdalene to make that, and we've also been working that it's not, the spaces aren't rented by individuals, but rather through the organizations to be more consistent in the implementation of the policy. So I will tackle that next year, but I feel very comfortable and confident with these rates right now.
Great, and we need to approve.
Yes, we do need to
This
approve
is
these.
an action item, if we could have a motion to.
Oh, sorry, before I explain all that.
No, it's fine.
I'll make a
Before
motion to
discussion.
approve the, I'll make a motion to approve the district facility rental rates.
I
25-26.
Sorry, I second.
You're good.
Discussion.
I already gave you all the info, what else you
Are
got?
these rates similar to last year? Or are they-
Yeah, no, we didn't change any of the
So
rates.
it's any surprises? to
Yeah,
anyone?
no.
Okay.
So it won't surprise anybody, we kept them consistent, like I said, they fall in the ballpark. If there were any outliers, I would have recommended changes.
One of the things that I had a question about was the $4 a day per student for using the facilities, just because we don't, I mean, that's $20 a week per child, and we're only charging like $40.
Those are but those aren't considered for profit, those are what we run through the district.
So that does not apply?
That does not apply to
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Those are district sponsored.
So that would be for like the Y?
We don't charge the Y then either, because we have a reciprocal agreement. I actually don't know any
Who does this
for-profit
apply
camps.
to? Okay.
It would be if like an AAU camp came in, or like Car Shield soccer camp, club my kid played for.
Yeah.
If they wanted to use our sporting
I
events.
don't recall that we've really ever had that come up.
Yeah.
I can't think of it.
But that would be the only one that I could think of, because any of those that would serve Brentwood students would typically be a not-for-profit that we would be partnering with, that we would be charging them.
So that happens like summer camps will want to use the facilities, this is the fee that
Yes.
apply to them if they want to.
Yeah.
use.
Yeah, like if they wanted a field trip day to use our soccer field or something, I don't know why they would, but.
Okay, any other questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is approved.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Dr. Zagora with our district assessment plan for next year.
Good evening. This is an action item, so I'm sharing with you our proposed district assessment plan for the 25-26 school year. If you recall, those of you that were on the board in the fall, I shared with you our plan for this year because with our change in leadership, it was delayed in getting to you. And so the link that's in the slides that you have will take you to the full assessment plan, which is an 8-page document, and it lays out the full calendar and defines what all those assessments are. And what I'm sharing with you are just some of the changes and highlights. So as a reminder, in the fall we put together an assessment task force because in addition to just wanting to review our whole assessment plan, we had one specific task that we had to accomplish, which was the fact that this year, the 24-25 school year, we were operating under a waiver from the state for our K through 3, kindergarten through 3rd grade, reading foundations test. DESE had gone through a lengthy process to approve certain vendors and not others, and so we found out somewhat last minute that the tool that we had been using, NWEA, and FastBridge for different purposes, were not on the list of approved providers, and so DESE was allowing a 1-year waiver to continue using what districts had been using while we developed a plan to find something new. So this year was status quo. Our task force came together to review all of our interim academic assessments, including selecting a new one from the approved vendor list to be our K through 3 reading foundations test moving forward. So when we came together, we shared kind of our vision for what we wanted the assessment to look like, and our philosophy was and is that our assessments here in Brentwood should assess students as infrequently as possible to leave as much instructional time available as possible and provide us with the most meaningful results that we can have. And so when we talk about getting meaningful results from our assessments, I think that it's a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, we want results that can inform instruction. So this can be anything from those quick daily checks that a teacher is doing to things like the NWEA, which will tell us where students have room to grow, where they're excelling and ready to be challenged a little bit more. And then the other side of that coin, and there is a lot of overlap, is tell us just big picture about program quality. So, I just went backwards. So for example, how is our curriculum aligning with those state standards? So for example, those MAP tests at the end of the year or ACT at the high school, that tells us big picture about how well are we doing at preparing our students for those assessments and exams, and then also how well are we accomplishing our mission from the state of making sure that our students are mastering the Missouri Learning Standards. And so the overlap in that is that when we have good assessments, they give us a lot of great data that can tell us about programs and about individual students. And so we can make adjustments to our curriculum if we need to. We can use good assessments sometimes as diagnostic data to help us provide interventions, to look at certain groups of students that are or are not performing at levels that we would expect. So I am excited to share with you that next year's assessment plan includes fewer assessments than what we've had to give at the elementary level in the last several years. If I can get there.
I'm probably blocking it.
Or it died, or
Do you want
I
it?
broke
We
it.
can. We can. There we go.
Okay.
We can do that.
As a refresher, the state does mandate a handful of assessments here in Missouri, and so there are no major changes in state mandated assessments. Kindergarten still requires the kindergarten observation form. This is a measure of kindergarten readiness in the fall, about 6 weeks into our students' school year when they come to us as kindergartners. The MAP test, what we call the MAP test, which are those grade level assessments, grades 3 through 8. Our end of course exam in high school, which are select courses, and it depends on when the student takes that course. So for some students it might be 9th, 10th, 11th grade. For other students they may have all 3 of them in 10th grade. It just depends on what some of the sequence of courses and is student specific. And then our reading and our dyslexia screener, which is where we are getting more bang for our buck next year. We're able to use one assessment that can knock out a few of those state mandated. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then also state mandated is the access test for our multilingual learners. So anytime a student comes to us that we know speaks a language other than English at home, we administer that access test. Our multilingual learner teachers administer that test, and then that tells us where their levels of English proficiency and helps guide our instruction with those students. Okay. All right, and then district assessments. So ones that we here in Brentwood choose to use to accomplish our goals of informing instruction, measuring program quality. So next year we will be using the iReady assessment for reading and math in grades kindergarten through 5th grade. This will replace the NWEA, which we have given here in Brentwood for many years. Our task force reviewed iReady and another assessment called the STAR assessment, which a lot of districts use. And the consensus was pretty clear. We had presentations from both vendors. We had a workshop where our assessment committee was able to really dig in and take practice tests and review the data and see how they would plan instruction. And it was pretty clear that for the elementary buildings, iReady was the way to go. iReady can be used as our dyslexia screening tool. It can be used as our reading foundations test for kindergarten through 3rd grade. And then also, just like NWEA, we will give it to all of our students K through 5, fall, winter, and spring to measure our own program quality throughout the year, and then also to measure student growth. So the data that it provides is, like NWEA, we will get really helpful data on academic achievement and then also student growth. But it actually includes more tools than we've had with NWEA to group students very specifically based on learning standards. So for example, teacher could give that fall assessment in math and immediately have data back of which students in her class are ready for more challenging standard in this specific area, which students may need a little more support to meet the standards in this area, and comes with some suggestions for instruction along with that. We did decide to keep the NWEA test for grades 6 through 10. We don't give it to students in 11th and 12th because they're doing practice ACTs and real ACTs and all that stuff. NWEA is the better measure for the post-secondary experience of our students. And so the 6+ test, the consensus there was that we get data about our students that tells us how far up into high school coursework are they prepared to go. It also has some equivalencies for ACT, some predictive measures for ACT. But we did realize in working with our committees that we need a refresher on NWEA, so our teachers that are giving it are going to get some professional development in the fall about how to really dig in, how to align it, do a lot like what iReady is going to kind of hand you on a platter. Use that information from the standards to help group students and identify where we need interventions or additional challenges for students. The rest of this is the same as previous years, so we'll continue to give the SABRS and MySABRS Social Emotional Learning Screener. FastBridge is a progress monitoring tool that we will use with students who are receiving intervention services for math or reading, and that's given every 6 weeks to measure progress and the efficacy of those interventions. And then all of our other program screeners will stay the same, as will our high school post-secondary planning exams. So this is just a reiteration. The only real changes are replacing NWA with iReady at elementary. And then we had students this year and previous years, all students would take the FastBridge because it counted as their dyslexia screener and reading foundations, and they won't have to do that next year. iReady will take care of that for those students. Any questions? I'm not ready for professional development. That's my next topic.
That's next.
Yeah.
Let's see the other questions first.
So the NWA wasn't okay by DESE. They gave us a year to use it, but it is okay at the upper levels. It just wasn't for the lower levels.
Right. So DESE's requirement applies to kindergarten through 3rd grade, and they did not approve the NWEA to meet that very specific requirement of reading fundamentals.
Okay.
Yeah. And that it may change by next year. I mean, honestly, this is kind of like the roller coaster that districts are on, which is a lot of districts were in the same boat. And it could be that like tomorrow DESE says, oh, NWA is fine, keep using. But we like iReady better.
You still like iReady better. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to give Dr. Zagora a big shout out for this, putting together this assessment task force, changing assessments, but doing it. We have to meet DESE, which changes its mind on a regular basis. So we wanted to make sure that we were sticking and creating and making sure we were all aligned in our philosophy and what is best practice in assessment, so that it helps us with the waves of change and making sure that the choices we were making were for best and not chasing whatever DESE changed their mind on. And I think the key of the least amount of assessments for the most amount of information is really, really important. And every district was kind of going through this, and with the transition, it was a good thing to wait a year, and I think Alex did loop us in last year. But I'm really glad and appreciative that she was willing to take this on as year one. So I think it was a great process.
Now, are there problems in tracking the kids as they go through and you going from one test to another? Do they link together in any way?
Not as cleanly as we would like. So, but we'll probably internally work on some kind of crosswalk that helps us identify where a student's score, like the ranges of scores on NWEA, and what we would expect that range to fall in on the iReady. I mean, both of them are widely used nationally, so the percentiles will not be terribly different, but the way that the raw data score is not going to be equivalent. So we'll work that out for teachers. And part of our contract with iReady, which is going to be extraordinarily helpful, is that in addition to just like onboarding this summer, our teachers will be trained on how to use the tool, is that their professional development is actually coming in and sitting down with the PLCs at each grade level to look at their data with them, help them understand, and then they'll be able to answer some of those questions too about like what does that crosswalk look like from the old assessment to the new one. So they actually will be coming in 3 times next year, K through 5, to sit down with grade level teams and explain and walk them through how to use that data and plan instruction around it.
I could get a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the FY 25-26 assessment plan.
I second. More discussion, more questions. I think parents always love to hear when there's a little less assessment happening, so
Yeah.
this is going to be a positive. But great that you still get the 3 data points in the year, because I think the kids, as they get into middle school and high school, are really used to taking those tests and like knowing what that number means, and so that same pattern is nice.
Yeah, and I appreciate how you mentioned that it'll give us something internally to monitor ourselves instead of all the external factors.
And really the goal would be, I would say long-term too, is that we want students setting their own goals based on this as well. And not just like, well, my score was 206 and next time I want to be a 212, but really understanding that like, oh, I need to grow in this particular area, and so that's where I can focus some of my efforts and set personal goals for their own learning.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect, that is approved.
Now we're ready.
Now are you ready?
Yes.
Also, an action item, sharing our professional development plan for next year. So to rewind just a little bit, the PD plan for 24-25 had been drafted last spring by our district professional development committee. And so some of the work that we did early this school year was take that plan that they had developed in the spring and align it to the strategic plan. And so a lot of the goals stayed the same, but many of the goals were specific to one building or one grade span. And we kept those in the plan and it kind of moved them around to fall under those strategic plan priorities. And so as we went through this year and we had a handful of district committees that were working on some of those priorities, we were able in this coming school year for 25-26 to really broaden the scope of our PD plan and make sure that pre-K through 12 we're all speaking the same language and working toward the same professional development goals, even though on the ground it's going to look different in elementary versus middle versus high. So some of the big changes from last year to, or I should say this year to next year, is stronger alignment with the strategic plan and the work that the district committees have done this year. More cohesion among the schools, a lot of shared priorities. We gave our needs assessment to all of our staff in April, and it was really exciting and cool that pre-K through 12, some of the big priorities were the same across the district. And so that made organizing next year's plan a lot easier because we can do more together, we can have those parallel experiences across buildings, and it was just really refreshing to feel like, okay, we all want the same things, we're all rowing in the same direction. And then we also will have next year some guiding documents that were developed over the course of this year by our committees, including our instructional framework and our guiding principles on AI that are going to be fully integrated into next year's PD. So some highlights under our student success priority. The goal, the language of the goal is the same as last year. This is taken from our strategic plan. Our target areas for next year are using the Brentwood instructional framework, which is research-based, developed by our curriculum committee, and really focuses on best practices in learning, tried and true fundamentals of good teaching and learning. And so using that instructional framework next year, we will be able to put that in the hands of teachers, administrators, counselors, whoever wants to join me on a learning walk, board members if you'd like to come. And we will take that into classrooms and we'll just be using it as kind of a conversational piece to look around, spend a few minutes in a classroom, come out, kind of debrief, like what good practice did we see in that classroom that we know is rooted in research on our instructional framework. And by having those conversations, we can start to build kind of a catalog of exemplars. So when we say clear learning goals for all students, okay, well in this classroom, maybe they were on the board, and in this classroom, we saw that students were, working in Canvas, and there were very clear goals. And so as we collect those examples, those are great teaching tools that staff can share from among each other, feedback that administrators can give to our teachers, and grow our practices from there. And then also our AI goal falls under the student success umbrella. So we've got a guiding principles document, which Tony doesn't know this yet, but he's gonna make it pretty for me this summer. And we will be sharing that out. So Keith and Ryan have heard all about it at our teaching and learning board advisory meetings. Our technology committee worked really hard this year to develop a plan of guiding principles that would align with acceptable use kind of policies that are expected for both staff and students, and also the PD plan to go with it. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire here to build the AI expertise of our staff, including, as I shared in last week's weekend update, Ladue has offered their summer PD series in AI to our teachers. We have a number of teachers that have taken us up on that offer, and will be, and Stacy and I also are going to be participating in those this summer, and we will be Gemini experts by the time the summer is done. Under school culture, again, the goal here is the same, the language of the goal is the same, the target areas for next year is building capacity among all staff in our multi-tiered systems of support, specifically with our social, emotional, and behavioral objectives. So what came out of our needs assessment is that a lot of our staff are asking for more strategies and more cohesion around how are we responding to behaviors in the classroom, how can we support students so that they're spending more time in class, less time needing to get that support out of class. And so I'm excited that we will be partnering with SSD. We'll have an MTSS coach and facilitator from SSD next year to help us start the administrative level and then trickle that down into the buildings of multi-tiered systems of support. What does it mean when we say tier 1 practices for all students, tier 2 practices in smaller groups, tier 3 when it's that more targeted instruction? So I think there's going to be a lot of buy-in and a lot of support for learning together in this area. And then the second bullet point there, celebrating individualized teacher growth. This was so successful this year, and the PDC was really excited, like, we got to keep it in the plan because it's awesome and everyone loves it, and it really is contributing to teacher goal setting. So all of our teachers have they call their PVTE goals, essentially their professional growth goal for the year. Sometimes there's a building goal, sometimes there's a building goal and the individual goal. And as part of building our school culture, all of our schools have evolved to celebrating at the end of the year individual growth on those teachers' goals. So at the high school, they do kind of a carnival share out, and at McGrath, they did one, I think it was like circus themed. But the idea is you've spent all year working really hard on your own growth while supporting your students. And so sharing that learning out, celebrating that growth, and then in some cases even forming cohorts with other teachers that had similar goals, and developing whole plans that you can share with your building of here are things we want to try next year because we as individuals learned so much doing it this year. So it's been really healthy and awesomely positive for culture, and we're keeping it there because it's something we want to make sure we keep doing every year. And then our last category that PD falls under is our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Our goal here, again, same language as last year, incorporate culturally competent learning, make sure that we have a culture that's open to dialogue around DEIA issues. One of our goals this current year was supporting our multilingual learners, but it had been written very narrowly for action that was happening in 1 or 2 buildings. And this emerged again as a need across the district, as all teachers want more strategies, more ideas to help our multilingual learners. And so we are, we'll be making sure that a lot of the learning that happened in pockets this year is being shared out with all of our teachers. We're also really excited to have our multilingual teachers who are ready to go and push into classrooms and do a little bit more coaching and support instead of just working one-on-one with our students, presenting on PD days and bringing the knowledge that they are able to get from the region, from their network of experts, and bring that to our staff next year. And then rooted in our instructional framework, there's a very explicit culture and climate piece also that will support this goal, which is essentially having great relationships with kids, supporting them, being positive, having comfortable, safe spaces, making sure students feel like they belong in the classroom, that they're represented in the curriculum. And so we'll just continue to be explicit with that as we use that instructional framework tool. We'll get more exemplars we can share about what do we mean when we say have a safe culture of belonging in your classroom. I believe that's it. Okay. Questions about the PD plan?
Can I get a motion to approve the PD plan?
I make a motion to approve the professional development plan for fiscal year 25-26.
I second. Discussion. I think it's really exciting. There are some things that we could probably all learn. And yeah, just the enthusiasm and getting feedback from the teachers that there are things that they really liked this year they're already doing is great news.
I want to again give a shout out as we end the year to think about, I don't know if you remember when we did a committee restructure at the beginning of the year, and I said they were all Ronnie's committees, and she had them all. The work that they completed, you just saw, and to do all of that in a year with the buy-in from teachers to, if you look at that instructional framework document that was created by teachers with teachers' voices and researched to lead committees to be able to get that kind of concrete work in a year is really, really impressive and is going to really allow us to hit the ground running. So thank you for running all of the committees in the district this year. We are very grateful.
And I'm going to pass that thanks on to our teachers who, many of whom were there on a strictly voluntary basis and showed up month after month because they were passionate about the work that we were doing. And so I'm very thankful that I had so much participation and input from our staff.
Can I just want to go back as an AI skeptic. Can we just go back to can we go back to that, and can you just talk a little bit more? You said you were talking about Ladue, and when it says introducing AI tools to staff and students, can you just expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So the context currently is that we've had some pockets of AI training for teachers, but we do not have any AI tools that are accessible to students. I should say students are finding ways to use it. I'm not naive. However, we have not unlocked an AI tool for students and provided the appropriate training for students to use it effectively. We know that we need to do that. I mean, we don't want to get behind the curve. We may already be behind the curve. And so in order to do that effectively, we need our teachers to be comfortable with their own use of AI, really in two dimensions. One is how it can help make their work more efficient in a lot of cases, or help brainstorm new ideas, make their work more creative. I know I've started to dabble in it, and there are things that I'm like, oh, it just saved me 2 hours of work. And so to build the teacher's comfort level so that when they're introducing it to students, they can walk them through how to use it responsibly, how to use it effectively. And then I think also a big part of this is helping students understand what we have just started to preach to our staff, that AI should always be like in the middle of your sandwich where a human is on top and on the bottom. Like it's always human, AI, and then human. And so I think that is huge for our students to understand that while it is a great tool and it can help them learn and it can help them be more effective and more efficient, that there will be times that it's not appropriate to use. There will be times where AI gets it wrong. And so you need to always be the fact checker of your AI. And in order to enable teachers to have a framework, a structure to do this, part of our AI guiding principles includes like a stoplight visual for students. And so that's, I think, going to be helpful for our teachers to say like, hey, this is red light, we're not using anything. Or like green light, go, brainstorm, get creative, see what AI can help you come up with. But then always making sure that they have the strategies to get back to our own cognitive involvement in that task.
So just, because I read through the red light, green light document that was on there, but can you kind of just walk through, like, I'm just trying to picture my kindergartner using AI. Can you just like...
Yeah, I think that's also some clarity around age-appropriate use of AI.
Can we just talk a little bit? Like high schoolers, I'm sure, are already using it.
So I will say out of our technology committee, which included elementary through high school representatives, there was a strong feeling at the elementary level of like, we don't see us introducing this until late elementary school. I will say, like, personally, I'll consider myself a reformed AI skeptic. I was like, very like, I'm not sure, and now I'm on board with like, yeah, there's an effective way to do this. But I also think, and I know that our board supports this, and I know that Amy supports this, like, especially our youngest learners should be on technology a minimal amount of time. And so I don't think that our staff feel like there is a need to introduce technology tools when we still need them to be forming their letters and doing their math on paper and really making all of those really important like connections in their brain from hand to thinking. And so I don't see this being something that we introduce until maybe 4th or 5th grade in anticipation of the types of tasks they'd be doing in middle school.
But you're still thinking the teachers of the younger students still would be.
And our teachers are already using it. I mean, there are so many free tools out there that our teachers are using and generating great ideas and coming up with cool stuff to do. So the teacher training will be universal.
Got it.
Yeah.
I watched the MSBA thing that Lindsay shared. It actually gave some really great tips if you haven't. It made me feel good because a lot of what we're already doing, it reinforced, which is always nice. And then just gave some good talking points too around just things to keep in mind that I thought. So it was valuable. If you listen at 1.5 times speed, it goes quicker. But I would recommend that as another one because I think a lot of the philosophy, that MSBA toolkit is, I know, something that was used by the technology committee as they were putting together our guiding document. And we will bring that AI policy to the board at our August policy meeting, and then the guiding document will live under that as the procedure kind of thing, philosophy.
Yeah, I went to that MSBA training as also pretty skeptical just because I didn't understand how it was being used, and I felt much better at the end of that, and talking about the need for students to be able to think through a process, and there is that human piece that needs to be within the whole process, and so I found it helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad there's a lot of tools out there for teachers with minimal cost need, but will the education cover points of protecting student data? And
Oh, yeah.
when or
Absolutely.
When to
Yeah, and that was something also that we wanted to make sure we emphasized in the guiding principles too, that like privacy is huge here, and that being explicit with adults and kids that like you do not put personal information into AI. It learns from what you feed it. So it's like, I think when I presented to teachers, I always like have the image of Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, like, feed me, see more. It's like that's, it's like, give me more, and then I can generate more learning, more knowledge. So yeah, I mean, that's a huge component. And of the sessions that Ladue is offering, a couple of them specifically are about like ethics and policy surrounding use of AI.
And MSBA brings that up as well, and with vendors and things like that, as that emerging is coming around, and making sure we're keeping a very close eye on any of the data privacy with anybody we're entering into contracts with too, for curriculum things.
And then a lot of companies are going to use a private version of it within their walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something teachers may want one day.
Yeah, I do too. So we have to keep an eye on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. Any more questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn it
Next
over
over
to
to
Stacey
Stacey
Taylor for
Taylor.
our ELA curriculum update.
Thanks. Let's see if
Stacey's
this will
rock.
work.
I'm happy to continue to.
Okay. I can't remember if I put everything in action one by one. We'll see as we go through this
You
slide.
have to press the button.
Maybe a little bit difficult. So I'm just here to give you an update on what's been going on with English language arts and the curriculum work this year. We're going into curriculum writing next week, K-12, which I'm really excited about. It's just a good time to re-envision and rethink and clarify what we're teaching and get new resources in. So I'm very excited about this time. There. Okay, so I'm going to start with elementary. This year, we went through and we audited our current grade card indicators. Those are what the teachers are currently reporting out about their students and their progress as they progress K-5. And so some of our goals were to see, the big question is, what is the narrative we're telling about the path our kids take from kindergarten through 5th grade? That was our first thing. And when we looked at it, we noticed that there was a path, but it wasn't necessarily clear. So we went back in and refined that path so we could see a clear progression from kindergarten to 5th grade. Along with that, we revisited our proficiency scales that went along with the indicators. So what teachers are reporting about your children, they're in elementary, they're standards-based, and there's a proficiency scale that goes with it. And the proficiency scale, the power in that is that they clarify the type of learning students should do to meet those indicators across the different points, across the different grade levels. So not only are the proficiency scales something that they're a tool for the teacher, but they're also a tool for the students. They can be helpful for you to see progress, especially when it comes to standards-based grading, which sometimes gets a bad rap because it feels a little ambiguous. But with really great proficiency scales, you can see the target where the student should be, and if they're not there, you can see the building blocks to get them there. So the whole point was just to clarify everything and bring us together as a K-5 team. And the teachers were wonderful, and they had done so much work already with proficiency scales, but it just was done a little bit in silos before this, so we really worked on that vertical alignment. Something else that was happening this year is that we were test driving a variety of resources. It wasn't really a mini pilot, that's what it was slated to be. As we dug in, we realized we didn't have what it takes to do mini pilots because it takes PD, full resources, everything else. So what we did is Kelsey previously had curated a bunch of different resources, looked over them with the K-5 staff, and they selected a few that they wanted to dive in deeper and look at. So we took those resources, I talked to the reps, walked the teachers through like the big pictures of them, and then asked teachers to try them out a unit or look through the materials and figure out what are we interested in going into when we adopt new curriculum, or a new curricular resource for our students. We, along with that, kind of narrowed these resources down to a couple that some neighboring districts that were using. So we visited Lindbergh, who had a resource that we were interested in called Benchmark. And we saw them, we saw primary and upper elementary using this resource. And then we also went over to Ladue, who they're using a resource called Collaborative Literacy. And again, we saw primary grades and then upper grades. And through all of that work, we had the option on the table was that next year would be a time that we would full on pilot 2 different resources. But after all of our work this year, our teachers really realized that they were leaning towards one resource, and it started to not feel good to feel like we had to pilot 2 resources next year. So after doing a little bit more digging and more surveys and talking to teachers and seeing what we really wanted, we decided to move with, instead of having a 1-year implementation of reading, writing, and word study, we're gonna have a 2-year implementation using a resource called Collaborative Literacy. It's being a reader and being a writer. It's the same resource being used over at Ladue. Not only were we impressed with what was happening in the classrooms, we were impressed with their professional support. So next year our teachers will be going into and starting with a slow roll of implementation, which works wonderfully, so because we don't want to burn anyone out. And we're gonna start with being a writer. So we have some professional learning coming in this summer, and it's going to pair great with our curriculum writing. So writing will be next year, and reading will be the following year. And this seemed to be the best fit for our teachers. So you can see with our 25 through 27 plan, like I said, next year we'll be implementing being a writer. That was recommended by the company. I also believe in a 2-year implementation too at the elementary because they just have so much to do and teach these wonderful kids. We need to just make sure they're as successful as possible. So 25, 26, implementing writing. We'll probably start to do a little learning on the reading and word study components, foundational literacy components, and then the following year we will layer in the reading. And so everyone, I think this seems like the best plan for them, and they were all on board. So this left us feeling really good in our committee, and we're excited for this summer, our learning, and for next year. And then in the secondary world, this year, the middle schools started drafting proficiency scales. This was newer to them. They didn't have them quite yet. They had priority standards out there. So we are looking at the 6th and 7th grade teachers will be standards-based reporting, and then the 8th grade teachers will be going to traditional grades to help that transition into high school. But the proficiency scales, just like in the elementary realm, paint a path for our students, a clear path for our students, and a clear path for teaching. And especially at our secondary level where we have singleton teachers going 6 through 12, proficiency scales are really important so we can see the learning building from year to year so that we're clear on the path our students are taking and how we're teaching everything. So we've been working on that, and we're going to continue that as we work on curriculum writing next week because the scales are the base of our curriculum. For 9th through 12th grade, we're really unpacking these priority standards. They do not have standards-based grading. They'll have traditional grades, but they will have their priority standards laid out in the same way they are K through 8, where we can have that clarity in our teaching and our learning for our students. I think they're going to be really supportive of giving students access to curriculum that can be tricky. We know some of the content we cover in ELA is really big, and sometimes some students have a more challenging time accessing it. The proficiency scales are going to help paint that path for everybody and also give a path ahead when students need to move up and be challenged. So that work is happening. We are auditing our current units in 6 through 12 to figure out what do we have, what do we like, what would we need, and what's best for next year going into like a resource selection. So unlike the elementary, who's moving into a resource next year, secondary, we're going to spend next year reviewing the resources that we have at our fingertips. We've brought in several, we've talked to different reps, and see what we like there and figure out what fits with what we currently have. Many teachers are very happy with what they currently have, but there's also some needs there. So we're going to be pulling in the resources that best help to enhance and refine and make our units more robust even than they are right now. And so that's kind of our plan. So like I said, next year we will be looking at resources, and then the following year we will have our new units written and be adopting any additional resources that we need for the secondary world. Okay, and my last slide is kind of just to give you a little update from Desi. Some of it overlaps with what Ronnie has already said, but there's the Missouri Read, Lead, and Succeed initiative, which is just an initiative to have all students in the state of Missouri be strong readers and to equip our teachers to teach all kinds of readers. So at the elementary level, one thing that they've offered is giving our teachers letters training at no cost. That really goes into the foundations of reading instruction and how to teach kids best. It's more of a it's like a background knowledge building. It's not a resource, but it equips our teachers with the knowledge that they need to teach any student, no matter where they are in their reading journey. And then a new thing happening this next year is the Aspire program, which is kind of like the sister program to Letters, but it's for teachers of grades 6 through 9. We actually have a small cohort going through the Aspire program next year. I will be going with them. It's me, Linda Soramis, Mary Seal, and Alexa Blanco. We will be learning about how to teach our middle school, our 6th through 9th grade students that in the best way possible to make everyone successful at reading. So we're excited about that. It's a newer cohort, and so we're just going to take it on and all together and do the best we can to share it with our colleagues as we learn about it. So I'm very excited about that too, and to have a cohort to do it with. I just appreciate the teachers here that are always willing to learn to do the best things they can for their students, and I see that in all of the work that we've done this year. And then Ronnie already talked about this. Our foundational reading assessment is changing next year. We're moving into iReady. We are very excited in the elementary world to have iReady. It's other districts that have been using it already speak so highly of it. They worked out some of the kinks, so we're learning from them in that way. That's a benefit when we had that waiver for a while. And like Ronnie said, they were like, you have to move away from NWA and do something else. We're like, we've got iReady. And then they came back, they're like, well, we may be changing this again, but that doesn't happen until June 2026. But I'm confident that iReady will most likely be on there. I mean, so many districts have it. It's working well for the teachers, for the students, less assessments, better feedback from it. So I am very excited about all these new pieces and how they'll play together for us in the ELA world in the future. So thank you. Do you have any questions for me or any of the work that we're doing?
I have a question that maybe comes alongside. One of the things that I'm learning about outside of this context is through Lisa Donmore's book, The Emotional Lives of Teenagers, and she talks about how helpful it is for students to increase their empathy by navigating complex themes through ELA.
Yes.
And I just wondered how that objective of ours was tying into this curriculum rebuild.
I love that. So a couple of things that we're doing. When I started this work in the K-12 committee, one of the things we created were belief statements. I should have popped those up there. And one of our belief statements is exactly what you're talking about, making sure that we have books where students not only see themselves, they learn about others and new experiences. So that's going to be a big part of us looking, especially at the secondary level, what texts really speak to our students, not only to motivate them to read and make them want to read, but also teach them more about themselves in the world around them. And so that is at the heart of what we're doing. Also, Ronnie and I, when we start curriculum writing next week, one of the first days, we're going to be talking about lifelong transfer goals. And really, when you think about the heart of reading and writing, what do we want to get from our students when they leave Brentwood? And so that's really going to center our work around these ideas that really matter to us. So that is at the heart of this too. And sometimes change is hard, but this is our opportunity. And that's why I love curriculum writing and cycles, because it gives us a chance to look at things with a new lens. We have some new teammates to our program. We know we hired a new Anissa. She'll be our 9th and 12th grade ELA teacher. So it's a really great time to be doing this work with a new team and re-envisioning some of those things as well.
Also have to give a shout out to Stacy, who came in brand new and tackled ELA curriculum writing in year 1, K-12. Not a big deal at all. Usually get to soften the first year, build relationships, get to know people, or completely revamp some of the expectations around ELA. So I appreciate all the work you've done, and I know teachers have been really grateful for your support.
Well, the teachers are amazing. They make this a very fun job to do. They're very committed and love the students here, and they're a great group of people. So I'm very lucky to work with them. So, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
I think those are it for my updates.
Okay, that moves us to Board of Education. Mark is our MSBA delegate, and he's not here. Keith, anything you would like to share about MSBA? Are you going to the summer retreat?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to the summer retreat?
I'm planning to, yeah.
Thank you.
And I guess the main thing for the delegates will be the election of the officers. And that's about it.
Thank you for
Are you
going on our
going,
behalf.
or
I am
anybody
not.
else going?
I will be out of town. But I will do it to start our plug I do every month now for the state conference in October. It's great. See if you can make it. You can learn a lot.
Yeah, it's always kind of surprising. You think this is just going to be dumb, but then you end up
We had fun.
And
We do learn a lot.
We did have some fun.
We had fun and we learned a lot, which is just really the best. Did we share that Brentwood is going to be hosting the September 3rd Fall MSBA conference? So we kind of need all of you to show up. So I'm just putting that.
September. We should have that.
Oh, we will put that on your calendar, but it would look really proud if we didn't have the largest delegation.
It's in September or no?
Yes, I think she sent me an email. We're still finalizing. I have to work with Andy, space and parking and all of that, but we believe we'll have it in the commons/gym at the high school, getting all of that set up. It's in the evening. We're very excited to host. I believe she said September 3rd is the fall date.
If anybody wants to go to the summer summit or sign up for other things, let me know and I can get you registered.
Thank you.
Yes, the Region 7 MSBA fall is Wednesday, September 3rd. And we'll be
September
done.
3rd, you said?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
7 p.m. Nope, I lied. 6:30 p.m. But I will get that on your calendar. We were
Well, I
trying to figure
kind of
it
felt like I was baiting Amy into volunteering to do that.
kind
but
of
then
did.
She
He
kept saying
guilted
she
me.
wanted to. So
No, I like hosting parties. There was just, parking is an issue here. So that was our problem, but Steve's already cleared our calendar, so we won't have any other athletics here. So
Perfect.
it'll be good. So I'm excited to show the space.
Okay. And then special school district, I know, Katie, you met with Mark to get some background on what it is to be our representative there. And there's a meeting in June that Mark is going to attend.
Mark is going to take my place at the meeting in June, yes, so he will be there.
Stay tuned. Okay, great. And board committee updates?
I think Ronnie gave the report.
Perfect. That's very good. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
The Student Experience Board Advisory.
Except for, we talked about cell phone usage, and now the state passed a law just outlawing it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So we have to work that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to amend our document.
So not at all?
They have to be out of sight from arrival until dismissal.
K to 12.
K to 12.
And that's been signed.
It has not been signed, but it has
signed,
passed.
but yeah,
It
it's
will
in
be.
Expect to
passed.
see.
Yeah, it will be signed.
Yeah.
There's no reason to think that it won't be. So we will have to revise that, because the Student Experience Board Advisory looked at those same documents that the Curriculum and Instruction Board Advisory did as well.
So you get to blame it on somebody else.
Works for me! Works for me! Works for me. So,
They want it anyways.
actually, we did have the student feedback did say, our
Student
senior,
feedback was that they
our
want
high
it.
school senior said that, I actually think that it would be good for my friends. They won't like it at first, but it's good for us.
And he was speaking to himself too, like, I don't want to give it up, but I do concede that it is in my best interest.
Yes, he did. He was very, very thoughtful.
For community engagement, we're meeting tomorrow for a follow-up for our end of the year meeting. Anything else? I know we're winding down, so it's okay if there are not any pressing updates. Okay. And Brian Flynn is our 353 representative, and he's not here. And then upcoming events, just remember we've got our all-day retreat on June 10th at McGrath, and Keith is our Summer Summit representative. Thank you.
Okay, also graduation tomorrow, which should not have been on here because we were supposed to do it Saturday. First of all, publicly, huge shout out to the community. I know that we put out a communication today to help any families that are still suffering in the aftermaths or displacement from the tornadoes, but also a huge thank you to our community. This is a very exciting event that had to be postponed, and the understanding and the kindness and compassion, zero email complaints to both Ed or myself, and we are very grateful for that. It was a very difficult, obviously we couldn't control the power, but not knowing. But I also want to give a huge shout out to Carrie Trostel and the Booster Club and all of the work, all of the parents who volunteered to still allow students to have project graduation, working Saturday morning to get vendors, on the phone with Carrie to come up with a plan to be able to move everything over to McGrath. And I got pictures and a big shout out on Sunday that said it was wonderful, and actually the space may have worked better at McGrath. So wonderful opportunity for our kids. So want to definitely publicly say those things, but also for graduation, I know Katie can no longer make it, which I am sorry, but if you are able to make it, it starts at 7, so if you could be there by 6:15, that would be great. We are changing it up a little bit where we stand. It's going to be pretty easy. I will stand first, they will shake my hand, then it will be the board member, and they'll shake your hand, and then Ed is actually going to give them the diploma because of how the flow goes. But each board member will get a row or 2. So when the speaker who's announcing the names change, that's when the board member will change. Lindsay's going to lead us off with the first one. So
favorite.
Follow Lindsay. well, when she steps back and the next person comes for the next row, then the next person will go. And once we get there in that space, I'll show you. But it's a pretty easy, and it's wonderful. I've never done the Brentwood one, but let me tell you, graduations in general are wonderful. My favorite part of the year. Like I said, I teared up watching them in the library. I can only imagine how it's going to be on graduation day. So very proud of our graduates.
It is a lot of fun.
It is.
It's fun.
It's kind of what
we're all here for, right?
What we're trying to accomplish.
It's kind of like,
Keith has said that many, many times over the years. Our goal is to get these kids to walk across the stage right there.
We achieve that goal every year, and I'm very excited.
Yes,
they do
great.
They do
Awesome. Good. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you. If I can have a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes. We do need one more roll call, Kate? I don't have it on the agenda here, but.
Mark Cicero, Katie Clark,
Yes.
Ryan Dotson,
Yes.
Brian Flynn, Keith Ravenberg,
Yes.
Katie Spall,
Yes.
Lindsay Spencer.
Yes. Thank you.
Kim Clark, I just want you to know that it's not quite yet 9 o'clock, so not 11.
Yes.
Not 11,
No.
we promise.
You did a good job. Good job.
All right, thank you all. Thank you everyone who presented. Thank you for being here, ladies. Last week of school, you are troopers.
Man.
Troopers.